Today, I'm showing you how to make knife maker touch mark. Yeah. Alright, since today we're making a touch mark, you've seen mine before. It's upside down. I make it where I hold them with these vice grips. Put it straight down on my piece and hit it with a hammer. Problem I'm having with this one is that this end piece is just too long, and sometimes my mark rocks side to side. That R, you see, sometimes just doesn't come out. Well, I got somebody that wants me to make one for them, and I got another scrap piece of 1095 here. So I'm either going to use this piece if it works out well, something that's small, it's very small here, or I'm going to end up cutting this end off, which I need to do anyways, and use this end. Let's get started. What I want to do is design whatever shape that you want it to be. Just keep in mind you have to do it where it's open, or you'll have to use a Dremel and be very, very precise. Also, keep in mind when you carve it, it has to be backwards. That way when you stamp it into the steel, that hot steel, it comes out facing the right direction. You can't make it like this, PCR, and expect it to come out that's the way you're going to see it. It has to be backwards. I'll show you on this one again. Stamp has to be backwards. Next thing you want is to have some diamond files. Ooh, hello. A bunch of different shapes. Also some needle files. Some of these cut a little bit better depending on the steel. And if you anneal the steel, which we've discussed before, getting it really hot, critical, and letting it cool down absolutely as slowly as possible. The way I do it is leave it in the forge. Other people use vermiculite or cat litter or all sorts of stuff that reflect the heat back into it so it stays for a long time. Other people I've seen throwing them in the campfires. Just leave it in there till the campfire's worn out. But these things will cut a lot better into the steel once it is annealed at its softest point. Doesn't have to, but it will take you a lot longer to get this done. Alright, now we're going to use an angle grinder. With this one, since I need to make this shorter anyways, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. Maybe use this section. This seems a little wide for what it is I want to use on it, so maybe I'll taper it down to a little bit after I draw it on there. Now this piece, I'm going to leave this one long. I might cut it off a little bit just for a little bit ease of handling, but right now we're going to go ahead and keep it long. I mean, I'll probably cut it right here. That way it's still plenty long and I get good grip inside of the vise, which you're definitely going to need to clamp these things down. After you cut these things, they will be pretty hot. Yes, you can dunk them in water. It's not hot enough for it to affect the steel, other than to make it cooler so you can handle it. Now that they're cool, your next step is to dry them off. And then we're going to have to file down the edges to make sure that they're perfectly flat. It doesn't really have to be perfectly flat, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier to draw on, which is what we'll do after that. So let's dry these off. Paper towel, the unsung hero of the shop. You will use more paper towel than you will use anything at all ever. Thank you, paper towel, for always being there. Next, put these things in a vise, file down these edges. You see little burrs come up along the edge, you don't want to catch your finger on that. And then we should start drawing on that flat side. File it down. Now that I've filed them down, you can use a mill or bastard file as long as it doesn't leave ridges. Just smooth enough to draw on it with a Sharpie. I went ahead and drawn on all the sides that I was considering with a Sharpie. Remember, it needs to be backwards. Well, there we go. I think, giving myself room to make it strong, and the fact that this has a nice little hole already on it, and I've already widened the back end of this pretty good for, time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and file this one. What we do now is we get out those files we mentioned at the beginning, place this guy in the file, or in the vise, use your big files, run the edges down to where it's down to the point where it only gets to the edges of, in this case, the M, the C, and those marks. I'll file down the right side and the left side into a taper looking similar to this end. Little tip with your vise: in order to get a really strong hold metal to metal, and you don't have the rubbery vise jaw pieces that they sell on Amazon or wherever that have the magnets and stuff on them, just use 2 pieces of scrap wood. Softer the wood, the better, and it'll really hold it in there without a whole ton of pressure. It's clamped in, and go ahead and get filing. Now that we've got these edges tapered, bring the ends in here, the top and the bottom, into the shape that you're looking for. Just squaring this off, getting it closer, getting it closer. He wants to focus on anything except the item. Fantastic. Alright, there we go. Now you can see, tapered this edge down and got these edges a little bit closer. I didn't really have to do much up here, but I did. Hit a little bit. Now we're going to start rounding these edges, right where this M is at. I need sharp edges on the other 3 corners. I'm going to start rounding that. Right now we're still using the big fat file. When you get real close, you can go from a bastard file to a smooth file, and it'll help just a shade. Just in case you don't know the difference between a smooth file and a bastard file, the bastard files are really rough, plus it'll say bastard. Smooth, a lot smoother. You'll see just in the video, you can see just how much closer these lines are versus these lines. And this one, I mean, this is almost a rasp. Smooth file will leave a lot less file marks. It's like the difference between really rough sandpaper and really smooth sandpaper. Files are great. And now you can see we got that one edge that I need for that M portion really smoothed out. That was with the smooth file. Now I'm going to go ahead and use either one of my diamond files or anything that I have that has a nice sharp edge on it. In this case I'm using a triangle file. Anything that'll fit in that edge. In fact, you can even use the edge of your file if that edge is sharp enough. And start laying in the lines between the marks. Where that M on this case is, the C, and the 2 little lines underneath that C. Got the line between the C and the M. The tricky part is going to be right those 2 little lines there and between those 2 little lines right there. Instead of going really sharp this way, you can go really sharp this way if you run into any problems. It does take more work, but it keeps you from running into anything that you're not trying to hit. I've started with the triangle file, which I just dropped. It has a sharper edge. I got it back. The triangle file from the needle files has a sharper edge than this blade file here that I just dropped. Good grief. Anyways, whew, there we are. I started kicking right into these little notches here. It's really small, so it really does have a hard time showing up on video. I apologize for that. It's probably why not too many people make these videos. Really, really hard to film. Try to get it to focus close. There we go. You can start to see right where those spots are. Hit it with that really, really sharp edge, get you started. Also, keep in mind, we didn't go all the way to the very end of these letters. Once we get these little notches started, and we can hit it with the blade file and go ahead and pull them all the way through. And then there should be a little flat file. You might be able to push through with those the rest of the way. Keep in mind, you can't make this smaller than the marks that your files will make. So if your files are big, you can't make it any smaller than those edges. Go ahead and test it and figure out what size you can make. I already know I can make this with what I have. Alright, lots of filing later. We're getting close. It's getting so small it's getting hard to see. A little trick to that is run a permanent marker right over the top. Let's do that. I went ahead and ran over top of the thing and it bled down that it's so thin. If you're using any of these Office Depot permanent markers, it will do that. I should have used a Sharpie. They don't do that. This is not sponsored. Alright, I've cleaned it up a whole lot. Of course it doesn't want to focus again. But the point to this part is to show you taking a piece of sandpaper and fold it in half. Usually wet sandpaper. The wet dry stuff, the black stuff will get even finer. You can run it right down the middle of this, and then like that C, it doesn't want to focus. That's freaking awesome. Come on, there we go. That C, that lower portion of the C, still needs to be filed out because it's square. Only way to do it right now is with a little piece of sandpaper and a whole lot of patience. That this whole project takes is all patience. Alright, we're starting to look good here. It's kind of hard to tell between some of the sharper portions just how it's going to come out. Looking at it dead on, you're going, man, this just doesn't look great. But that's not what you're looking at. You want to see the indentation that it makes. In this case, I've tried it on several different blocks of wood. Good soft pine, or sometimes this crappy laminate stuff. Those you got to be careful which direction. The grain of that laminate will make it look horrible, like in this case between that C and the two lines, unless you turn it another direction. See, the one where the light is reflecting right now came out a whole lot better. What I'm noticing is the M is a little thick in my case. But, like my dad used to say, if you want it perfect, make it perfect. So, I'll make it perfect. Alright, I've done a lot of tests. This is the last one right here. Came out really, really well. I think the M is now perfect. The C is now perfect. The lines underneath of it are now perfect. Doesn't look like crap here, but that's, like I said, you got to test it. Now, what you want to do at this point is go ahead and flatten that top. There's two ways to do that. One is with your files, either the smooth or one of your diamond files. Do not use sandpaper in this case. You'll just round over the edges and it'll look like crap later. The other thing you can do is sandpaper is you can get it on a flat piece of like micarta or glass or something that's strong, probably not glass, and put some spray glue down, put your piece of sandpaper down on it perfectly flat. put this face down on it and rub really, really slow across it. I would recommend wet sanding in that case. If you want it where it's flawless grains across the top of this and they don't show at all. I like it where it kind of shows a little bit of cross marks. So I take my diamond file and I run it kind of at an angle. And that way, no matter how the grains are on the steel that you stamp this in, it still shows just a little bit of that texture just inside of it. And I really like how that looks. Doesn't look like it was done with a laser or a machine at all that way. Because, hey, you can't do that with a laser or a machine. That's the best part about handwork. Let's file that top down. I used the blade diamond file, put my thumb on top of it, and ran it in the cross directions just like I said I would do. Right that way and that way. Alright. I don't know why it's not coming out. There we go. You might be able to see it there if you're in full screen on a PC with a 50-inch monitor. Alright, next thing I want to do is heat this thing up critical and quench it. Then temper it. Very important, you want to make sure that this is definitely harder than the steel you're going to pound it into. So we're going to do very similar to knife making. Same way. Heat it up, quench, temper, same. Probably use around the, well, we're not even really looking at the temperature. Like if you throw it in the oven, that's cool too. But I'm going to go ahead and run it with colors and just watch the colors. Yeah, let's heat it up, quench it. I've already heated up my oil. That's what that little piece is in there. The reason you heat up the oil is just so it's not as violent when it does get this at critical. Like I said earlier, we're going to let this go to a very similar to a knife maker style. So it's plenty strong. Turn off those lights so you can see the colors. And my magnet here, still sticking, which means we are not at the temperature we need to be. Heat it up, cool it down, normalize it, just like with a knife. And I'm aiming here, letting the heat draw this direction, because the ends that are narrow will work like a heat sink, and you can overheat it. right about there. Not magnetic. A little bit hotter. There. Ooh, that vegetable oil smells so good. This piece is too small to worry about the whole magnetic north-south thing. I know some people say that's just a wives' tale, but since I've started doing it, I haven't warped any blades. So, oh, maybe I just got lucky, or maybe it works. You see how far I quenched it? Let some of that heat draw back up towards the front. You only cool up to, like I said, that halfway line. Let some of that heat come back. I'm going to temper it anyways, so even if you do shove the whole thing in, your oil right now is probably 200, maybe a lot more. Maybe 400, who knows. I could test it, but I don't have anything to test it with. You see the colors on this piece from where I heated up and shoved it in there. Good heat coming off of that. It's good. Alright, now we're going to let this sit till completely cool. Doesn't really matter which way, it's not big enough to work like a knife. Alright, now that she's cooled down, you see there's going to be plenty of black along here. You hit it with a green scrubby like I did already a little bit, but it doesn't get it all off. So take out a piece of sandpaper, get that edge off the edge so you don't mess it up. Run it so you can see that. Nice and clear. Reason for that is when we heat this up, we'll see the colors draw this direction. We want it to get yellow right around here. And I'll just go the rest of the way and it'll be good. Nice and tough. Like I said, very similar to knife making, only we're not making an edge. Should be able to see that shiny on here. Doesn't have to be perfect, just enough that you can see the color. Now, using a torch to do this, like this, takes quite a bit of finesse. So now burn yourself, make sure it doesn't go too far. If it goes too far, like you start getting that yellow all the way up here, and then you start seeing the colors behind it. Brown, blue, purplish. And you got to start over with the heat it up again, quench it, clean it. Alright. Hit it with the heat, let it run, watch what it does. We're starting to see the yellow draw that direction. That straw color to get all the way up towards that end. And we're getting it right now. If it's your first time doing this, you ain't going to get this. You'll go too far. You gotta take your time. You gotta go slow in order for it to even be successful on your first try. There we go. Blue and purple, yellow, right there, done. There it is. Dropped it right in the water, stopped right where I wanted it. Make sure your gas is off when you're done. Very important. And make sure we can see the color here. See the straw color up at the tip and all the way back. And those are very clear, showing you the colors of what heat does to steel. It's really cool. This side doesn't really show it as much, but it's definitely straw color all the way up to the end. We are good. Cool it off all the way. Now, dry the thing. We're going to use a rag with a little bit of oil on it, and we're going to go ahead and blacken this. I'll show you how to do that. Alright, now that I'm all dried up, take your rag and keep that at the ready. Take your torch again. This time you're not going to get it hot enough for any colors to draw through this thing. Just getting it somewhere around like 250, 300. See how much further back I am this time. Get that rag, a little bit in the oil. Now you know if it's hot enough because it'll smoke when you put it on here. That's not smoking. There we go. A little bit of smoke. Just because it's smoking don't mean it's done. If it doesn't turn black or get really dark, you're almost there, but not quite there. And that's how we are right now. Almost there. A lot more smoke that time. Let's see. There it is. That's what we want right there. Helps with rust prevention. Makes it last a good long time. Alright guys, we got a touch mark. That's how you do it. Thanks for watching.